past 2 days? What did we learn also on Wednesday? And for that, of course, I need to invite the people who are in charge or who are really working with us every single day to make the program. So at first, from the European Commission, I would like to invite Hélène Chraye. She's the Deputy Director of the Clean Planet. Her directorate is cleaning up the planet, I hope. So you're here, next to me. If you're not afraid of me, you can sit next to me.
If you're not afraid of me.
Yeah, that's maybe another question, true. Anyway, welcome, Hélène, and thanks for making the time available to discuss a little bit with us on the next steps also in our program. The second, of course, very important partner is the research partner, and today will be represented by Luigi Crema. He's also the director of the Fondazione Bruno Kessler. Bienvenido. Thank you. Welcome, and looking forward to discuss with you, and I hope you enjoyed this 2 days as well, and you got a lot of takeaways for the research. And then, of course, the most important person, I would say, at least in our program, is the head of unit for the projects and for the operations and also the communication, who is responsible, of course, to organize these days. Mirela Atanasiu. Welcome, Mirela, and thanks for being here, because, of course, she needs to know what she needs to do next year and in the coming years, because she is responsible for the topics. And so listen carefully, Mirela, for what we will hear, and take notes, I would say, because we will hear now what we will need to do. So maybe first a small, I have to inform, if you would like to ask a question to this distinguished panel, please use Slido, but I think you have heard that already quite a lot, but you can still ask Slido questions, or also here we have a microphone, so if you have questions, do not hesitate and let's interact, because I think it's very important to interact and to get the right conclusions, because it would be a pity if you go home and you say, yeah, actually it was not so good, I had to know about this question. That would be a pity, so now it's your time to ask it. Right, so maybe a general question first to the Commission and also to Hygiene Europe Research. I mean, what were your main takeaways, before we go a bit in a deep dive, but maybe as a general, what were your first takeaways, Hélène?
So, by the way, we had an agreement on who said what, so...
Okay, well,
isn't it, huh?
That's always nice.
So I will focus on some specific takeaway, generic ones, which is that there was quite a number of mentioning of, let's say, framework conditions, or not purely technology, but what helps the hydrogen to develop. So there was, for instance, the issue of definition, which is linked to the problem of certification and standardization. So the call upon the European and national legislatures that there is a proper definition of what is clean hydrogen, and something which is used in all the regulatory frameworks, the discussions on standardization, and so on. And this is a very important point, because it links to the second one. I worked before in the industrial technologies, and in materials, so I know that the industry needs security, needs safety, needs to be able to plan investment in the long run on conditions which are not changing systematically, especially legal framework. So this is linked to the legal framework, but this is linked also to providing our industry with a certain stability, because stability is very important for investment decisions. So this is a second call, I would say, to the institutional level, that we ensure this stability. Whether it's good or bad at the definition, but at least it is stable. And that was a second, let's say, condition. And a third one I get was also something on availability of resources. Because the magnitude of the transition, whether it is for renewable or for hydrogen, is so huge that we are tapping into the resources of the planet, and some industries are really worried about availability of resources. I'm not speaking only on water, I'm speaking especially on materials, which is a call to the research policy to invest also in recycling, reusing and substitution. And the last, maybe, the two last points were a little bit even more generic. That was to find proper financial engineering, specifically for the hydrogen economy. But we have a lot of things. I mean, you know, we are not like the US with this DARPA process where you fund from A to Z, from tier 1 to tier 10. We are a little bit cut in our countries. So financial engineering is even more important for the EU because it means that we can have packages which are along the value chain. And that was also coming from the industry and the stakeholders. And I find it very interesting. And of course, it links to the importance of the cooperation, but a win-win with the international. And with that, I stop here.
Thank you. Very interesting. Very interesting. I will try to summarize later on. Luigi, same question for you. What are the main takeaways for you?
Yeah, after this really interesting program review days, but I would say even overall the whole Hydrogen Week, from the research point of view, we took the lesson that everything is becoming more and more connected each other. Now that the market is developing, now that technologies are entering into it, there are several challenges where research could support at all levels in a push-pull approach. So the pull approach is to support the industrial sector, for example, in the last mile of technology development, so let's say before the certification. And so our infrastructures that are enlarging in Europe, even due to several funding schemes that are supporting this innovation, technology innovation infrastructures, could give a role to the industrial sector to accelerate, to become earlier into the market with their technologies, developing maybe novel schemes of collaboration. We are much supporting, for example, the co-design, co-development of the technology, so where researchers and innovators in the industrial sector can work together, even in the same places, in the same locations. Joint innovation labs, the so-called OITB, the Open Innovation Test Beds, not only to give services, but even to work in the same environments. And this is important even because in the industrial sector will be more and more concentrated to manufacture technologies. So maybe the resources, even the human resources to continue to support an internal innovation could be maybe at risk even for the skill development, which is another open issue. On the next year, 2023, it will be the European Year of Skills, and we should, as Hydrogen Europe Research, develop even specific programs related to this. The second action we could support is to work in push. So to keep Europe in the forefront at the global scale in hydrogen technologies, I would say in all the value chain, from production to distribution, logistics, storage, and all the end uses, we need even to think to the next generation technologies and working since the lowest TRL levels. But in an agreed way with the industrial sector, so that we are working in priorities that could be helpful to strengthen the industrial sector itself. So helping industry then to enter into these next generation technologies since the beginning, just to advise, yes, you are doing the right thing in the right direction, and we are supporting you in the research.
Okay. I would like to pick on that, on what you said. We need to cooperate in lower TRL and also talk with the industry, and I agree with you on that. But how about the other member states? Because one of the things that I realized also in this during this conference, and maybe already I tell you one of my takeaways, but is that let's say 3 years ago for research, R&I think Europe was the main, I would say, area where you could get funding for R&I. if you look this today, the landscape is very, very different. I think even there are research programs that are probably even bigger outside of Europe, or outside of, I mean, the Commission in our program, but also France and Germany, but also, I mean, even we heard Bulgaria will spend 60 million euros. Slovenia will have new RNI instrument also for hydrogen. So you see, really, there's a lot of research. If you would money, and if you would put all that from the 27 member states on each other, I think we will be maybe somewhere here. And so
4%.
4%. Well, look at
Roughly,
this.
roughly.
But I'm not sure if it's also for hydrogen 4%. But
No, it's overall.
it's overall,
EU
huh?
research share 4% more or less,
Yeah.
and 80% close is industrial research in EU.
So should we not align a bit more better also for lower TRL, not only lower TRL, but with the member states? Because I think it's really, really necessary, because in our program we try to do everything, from production, distribution, storage, end-use application, RCS, hydrogen valleys. But how do we coordinate? And what is your suggestion, Louis? Because you said we will need to align with the industry, but don't you think it's also important with the member states?
Yes, that is a really important question, Bart, and maybe even Daria know well this challenge, having supported, for example, the agenda process. The agenda process is something that is going to answer to your question. So it was a process participated by member states, with the European Commission having a look to the process itself, and saying member states maybe have specific needs of research, because in the member states there are specific industrial sectors or internal change to be developed, even with a smaller range in between the knowledge development pathway. In the agenda process, it was agreed in the last conference in Berlin in May with the ministers from some countries, member states attending, that there should be a sort of coordination in between the member state, the European Commission, and in between the member states on the support of research in the hydrogen sector. Of course, there are several complementarities that could be supported, avoiding overlaps. A minimum physiologic overlap could be indeed useful in between, but of course I think in the next step member states, European Commission should talk even to align on what could be supported more at the European level, and what could be the role of the member states in supporting the same area.
Indeed, and I want to come because I know this is the favorite topic of Hélène as well.
One of my favorites.
So Hélène, I think we need to accelerate maybe this kind of discussion
Yeah.
between member states. How would you like to do that?
So just to calibrate the discussion, this is in the framework of ERA, the European Research Area, and hydrogen was the first time there was a thematic ERA, because ERA usually is exchange of researchers, I mean IPR, generalist, that was on a domain specific. So hydrogen was a pilot, it was called pilot and green hydrogen. So because the problem in a way is that the joint undertaking has a state representative group, but does not allow the member states to co-fund. You don't have a tripartite GU.
I don't know.
That's what
That's
I
correct.
mean.
No, yes.
So it's not institutionalized in the joint undertakings that the member states are co-funding. They can do it, but not inside the joint undertaking. And okay, we live with that. That was done. Right. We live with that. But we have another tool, which is a set plan. And the Commission is committed to put hydrogen more visible in the set plan, through indeed developing a kind of structure, because currently it is a bit hidden in different groups. By doing that, we want to reintroduce a capacity to support this ERA pilot on green hydrogen, cooperation between member states, and the good thing is that the set plan is benefiting from a co-fund under Horizon Europe between the Commission or the EU and the member states. So we want that this co-fund works in coordination with the GU, but do the part on industry, member states, and between member states. So we're trying to have a complete and exhaustive picture, and that's why the 3 year of the ERA pilot on green hydrogen, so the one you were speaking about, is harmonized with the 3 year of the joint undertaking. Well, that would have been better, we do all at it at the beginning, but that was not the case. Okay, sorry. Then we have another thing on the set plan which I find very interesting, which we would like to develop. This is the ERA, so an additional E in between. But the ERA is mixing industry, academia, and research. It's an alliance, and a kind of association. And it has joint programming between the member states without us. We just look, we help, but we don't fund. So we have, what I conclude without, because it's very, somehow it's a bit overcrowded. Huh? Not too much, but a bit, just a bit. So what I would like to make clear is that we have now all the tools. Our issue is to do synergy at the level of research and innovation between all these tools, so that we are doing more than by adding the things, and that we build on that to do synergies with the deployment, with regional funds, with what the member states are doing in their own countries and so on. And when I say member states, of course, for us, it is also associated countries.
Absolutely.
And candidate countries, of course.
Absolutely. Well, still a lot of work.
Impressive, huh?
Yeah, impressive, but still a lot of
So
work and still a lot of alignment to be done, I guess. But I would like to come back, Hélène, to what you mentioned earlier, and then I will ask a question also to Mirela. But Hélène, you mentioned that it's about standardization issues, they want stability. Do you think that when I look now to our work program, the part on what we call RCS, the part on RCS is very small. I mean, compared to all the other pillars that we have, in terms of budget-wise, I would say. Maybe one of the conclusions could be that we should spend, percentage-wise, maybe, or give more weight to the RCS, which is about skills, which is about safety, which is about pre-normative research. Perhaps we should do more than maybe in other areas, because that's what I got a little bit from your comments, but I have to say that's also what I got a little bit from also to the audience in this week. Would that be a correct kind of analysis, or is different? What is your view?
Well, I'm not sure we should give more money, but we should do maybe in a more consistent way. Very often in projects you have a module on skills, or a recommendation on standardization, or other type of recommendations, but they are not globalized, and they are not put further. So classically, I mean, we face the same problem in all the technology domains. I had the same issue in nanotechnology, for instance, where skills are absolutely critical. So the idea is maybe to give more money, but surely to have a way to coordinate the output of projects, and to be sure when we design topics that this part is consistent with what has been done, is preparing further actions, and is really looked in a way to be sustainable. Mm-hmm. That we just, closed website, but website is not running, skills, but it goes in a cupboard.
Yeah. Luigi, you had the same? What do you think on that such a statement, that maybe we should put a bit more weight on maybe the RCS pillar?
Yes, this is a really relevant topic. I agree with the view that we should go even to implement actions, trying to find the ways to outreach large impacts on these areas. Even from the analysis that we have done both at the European scale but even at the member level scales, most of the barriers today are not technological, but are barriers on the cross-cutting way, so that we need to improve on the regulations, on the permitting, to improve on the education training programs at all levels, not only the highest doctoral degree, just to make an examples.
Technicians and everything.
Because we will be in depth of a workforce soon for the sector when it will enlarge. So at both, particularly in the industrial sector. But even in permitting, for example, because we see even in the demo projects, most of the delays are coming from the permitting, and so that it's not possible, for example, in a given time to run enough hours a pilot technology, because you take 6 months or 1 year only for the permitting in large projects. So I think, and this is even a message I got from this event, in this event there was a mix in between different levels, so the policy level with the talk, the business to business, the program review days. So I think all the stakeholders are mostly aware that we should work at all levels, but particularly some levels require urgent actions, in which, for example, bringing together all the stakeholders to sort out the issue related to technology deployment at a larger scale.
Yeah.
In Italy, just to mention something we are doing, we are bringing to the same tables the ministries, the infrastructure operators, the firefighters that are related to permit hydrogen to be in place, as well as the industries. And when we organize these joint tables, all available in the same place for 2-3 days, some results is getting out. Of course, it's not a solution that you can get in 3 days. In 3 days, maybe you can understand better what to do. Then you need to plan for the action to bring at the implementation level what could be a high impact.
Mirela, of course you're every day into all the projects, and you have been running this show the past 2 days. What are your takeaways really on this? What was striking you a lot? And I say, oh, that was interesting. Or maybe also the question, which I then also would like to ask to these two people here, is where did you find that maybe we could spend less money, or where we should maybe focus less on? Did you find anything like that during the past 2 days? And what is your takeaways, and maybe what should we do less?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, and thank you for having me. And I have many. I have a challenge to.
There's also a question for you here,
yeah,
so I will give that question in a moment to you as well.
I try to summarize. I agree with both my predecessors in the panel. I also agree that, and I think this is maybe one of the takeaways, that we should even build more on the results of our projects. We have always done that. Maybe not in the perfect way, and I think we should do a better job maybe on that. But normally we have even cases where we build project on project on project. We are at the third, fourth generation of project. But indeed, and this is what we will do, I mean it's in my plan already, we will do even further with my knowledge management team to try to have this feedback loop into the next programming from the results of the current projects. Yeah, so this is in our radar already. On the barriers, I also take note, and again, we are aware that most of the barriers maybe right now are not anymore technological, although I would like to come back to that. And I think it would be good to maybe put more budget or more activities into permitting, why not, into this type of cross-cutting issues, maybe not necessarily standardization. However, I'm not sure this is really the best use of research money, in my opinion. And I think here we need to maybe further talk to see exactly, because indeed this is one of the takeaways, for example, from the valleys. From the valley session, that was the takeaway, that I heard saying, the money are not the problem anymore. There are other problems to implement the valleys there. And in particular, the most important one is to find users for these big quantities of hydrogen when you put in place a valley. So this is a bit where I think we need to reflect a bit more. I need to sleep more on that. It's
Yeah,
too
we're all
quick.
tired after
Yeah.
this week, but
It's too quickly to but I have many takeaways, and I think what shall I do next? I think indeed we should continue more talking to each other, and I think this is the beauty of this partnership. I always said that it has the industry, which unfortunately it's missing now, but it has the industry, it has the public, the commission, it has the research sitting together at the same table and somehow steering the research and innovation in Europe. And do not forget, we need to keep the competitiveness.
yeah, I would like to come to something that you mentioned. You said that, okay, I would like to come back to the technical barriers,
Yeah.
whether or not we should do more. But as I said, is there something that we should do less? And maybe do we need to maybe work less on some of these technical barriers because it's done by the industry anyway, or it's done by some other member states? Because I'm also looking to do something less in order to do something more in other domains. Or are we perfect?
Yeah, I have some ideas. I'm not sure industry agrees with me. So that's a bit where
They are not
you-
here, so.
yeah, you put me in the spine. I'm not sure they are not watching us at home. But yeah, there are, and we know very well there are some
Okay.
things that probably the industry will do anyway.
Mhm.
And I think our support may be only just in bringing them together.
Yeah.
I don't think we should really spend R&I money in that, but rather bring our touch, and our touch is the EU added value.
Yeah.
Because indeed, when you were saying the R&I in the member states, I think some things will happen. We are at the point that some things will happen anyway. But
Exactly.
I think the role of the GU,
Yeah.
it should be just to bring this EU touch and the different partners together. I continue to believe this. And I think this is, where we will make the difference.
Very good. A last question for you, and then there's a question for the other two speakers, for Hélène and Luigi. But first, there's a question from the audience. Is public acceptance of hydrogen is very important to make all projects sustainable for future. Is there any project for public acceptance of hydrogen? And I think you want
Yeah.
to something initiative that you took. Please.
We started working on that. This is a very important matter which we have not paid attention to because, okay, our technologies were not yet in front of the public. Now they're coming now to the public. We have to make first the people aware, accept, and even uptake. So we need to convince them to buy them. So this is one of our objectives, in fact, for the next 10 years. We have to show what we did to increase that. And we are currently performing a public opinion survey with Gallup, kind of a Eurobarometer. And yesterday I gave a bit of a glimpse of preliminary results. And it shows that the level of knowledge, let's put it, or awareness of people about hydrogen technology is equivalent to biofuels at least. So that's
Not
what's
bad.
coming out.
It's not bad.
Biofuels, geothermal. So that's the level of knowledge of people or awareness of hydrogen. But then when asking them, have you come in contact with the technology, it's less than 10%.
No.
It's about 8%. So
That's
that's
not
what's
good.
coming from the 27 member states. But then when asking them, do you see this hydrogen as a promising technology for decarbonizing, for the future life, for the next generations, most of them agree it's one of the mix. So, which is good. So, I already said yesterday, I think we are on the right path. The public is there, I believe. We just have to do more to get the technology to the public, to really accept and then uptake them.
Okay, we need to do more. I'm still looking for where we can do
What?
less. But I saw that just the industry also entered, so they got worried probably. No, just a joke. Hélène, there's a question, and also Luigi here. Well, because during this week, everybody was hailing about the hydrogen valleys, which was fantastic, and we need more hydrogen valleys. And also, I mean, the head of cabinet of Commissioner Gabriel was here, hailing the hydrogen valleys and their expectations, which is quite high to us. But how can they actually contribute to the issues that we have been just discussing, like permitting or education, skills, or other things? That's the question of the audience.
Well, I don't know who raised the question, but this is really the excellent one. Congratulations. Because this is the core of the work we are trying to do on the hydrogen valleys. Let me quote what is happening, for instance, in my own country, not on hydrogen, but on renewables. You have, in rural areas, small cities, I mean, even villages, people being spread out in the countryside, they associate in a cooperative. They bought land, they trained themselves, and they installed PV or windmills because they did it themselves and because it benefits first to them and not to the grid. They get permitting very quickly. And they understood what is necessary. So the principle of the hydrogen valleys is not to convince the people, it is to empower the people. That in a city, that in a region, so the first hydrogen valleys were big hydrogen valleys where you build electrolyzer and you export. But now the concept has drastically enlarged. It is also regions, areas, cities, small places where hydrogen will be relevant. And that helps the people, provided that they see a benefit. I mean, I'm deeply convinced that normal people are rational. If I see a benefit for me, I will manage that my mayor, my president of region, and the guy in the minister, they will agree. But if I come and I see a windmill in front of my garden, and I see that the benefit is going to God knows where, and I don't see any impact on my electricity bill or on my fuel for my car, okay, I will block. So the idea behind is, I mean, I'm a bit telling a common basic sense of the man of the street or the woman of the street. But the idea is that if we want to develop an hydrogen economy, we don't need to persuade people, we need to involve them. They will make it running. The same for renewables, the same for all the energy transition. Listen to people, see what they need, see what they want, see what they could do, and then go on. And that's very difficult because the industry is not well adjusted to that. So you need a partnership between the local authorities and the industry. And that's what we are trying to favor with the additional 200 million for hydrogen valleys from Repower EU, because this will help to get rid of the Russian gas and on petroleum products. So you see, I'm a fanatic of hydrogen valleys.
That's crystal clear, but thank you, thank you. Luigi, you want to also comment on that?
Yes, I fully agree with Hélène. I have the idea that hydrogen valleys are a fantastic gym because they are an ecosystem for the whole chain. The ecosystem is entering into an energy system, maybe wider, because we need to connect things. When citizens are even part, as said by Hélène, of this picture, they touch with their hand, they could have energy security, fixed pricing for energy for long term. I know several villages that with this, they inverted the depopulation effect, because when in a small country you have a fixed energy guaranteed for 20 years at the same level, because you have done all the investment ahead, this could be attractive for enterprises, but when coming enterprises, you have more people, so people want to have services, you add the services to the rural community, and so things are becoming bigger and bigger when first there was a depopulation effect. The second aspect is even the top-down, the bottom-up effect for the whole big picture, because when you are thinking, how could I bring let's say, hydrogen backbone in Europe distributed in several regions, countries, and connecting production site with consumption sites. the hydrogen valley is a ideal level to start with because you start to build up infrastructures. But when a valley is close to another valley, then two regions starts to interconnect and you enlarge the infrastructure. And this is a natural process. The third and even most urgent and relevant effect is that with other initiatives, for example, the IPCIs, there will be relevant money to scale up the manufacturing in industries, as well as by other programs, or even through direct private investments. But industries, when making these investments and creating gigafactories or large manufacturing plants, has to come back from the investment. And to come back, you need a market. And so I know several large industries that with the valley here and other there, even supported by public money, by private money, they start to allocate their manufacturing capacity. And when they allocate enough manufacturing capacity, they start to build up a gigafactory. These two investments at the industrial manufacturing scale and on the territories must have a time correlation, otherwise the investment could not come back and the industrial sector could have lost.
True.
Bart, would you allow me to make maybe something very
Of course.
summing up on the hydrogen valleys? 30 years ago, that was one of my first jobs at the Commission. I created the first Trans-European network of transport. And this Trans-European network was based on the fact that you build links, you draw lines on a map. It works very well. What we are doing is exactly the opposite. We are putting nodes, and then they will connect, making a flexible grid. I think we have to keep that image, describing hydrogen valleys, and of course what we want to extend in sustainable renewable valleys. Thank you. Sorry.
We want to have the mushrooming of the hydrogen valleys at some point, yes. Well, I saw there was a question here from the audience, from I think the Denmark Technical University.
Thanks a lot, Anke Hagen, Technical University of Denmark. The green transition is very urgent, so there have to be very fast actions. On the other hand, we see here that there are a lot of promising, huge portfolio of opportunities, of technologies that we've been working on. And how can we actually ensure that they get a chance on the market, that they overcome these barriers in implementing into society, which we might not know that we have ahead of us, and really harvest both the potential and also the investments as compared to other more mature commercial technologies that are here and now and that could already be implemented. So how, and do we ensure that these technologies we work with, electrolysis, hydrogen, which have a bit longer time maybe, but that they get a chance to really make a difference in the society that we believe they should do?
Who wants to take that one, or Mirela, or you would like?
I always have an opinion, but I would like to hear.
Well, or Hélène, no.
No, Luigi.
I can take. Yeah. Yes, this is an important question, and it is even included in the SRIA that we, the industry and the European Commission had developed for the Clean Hydrogen Partnership. We see which kind of support we would like to give, for example, to the more mature technologies to improve and to keep in the forefront even the alkaline or the PEM electrolyzers, just to make a couple of examples. But even how to support the emerging technologies that could play a relevant role in the next future. For example, solid oxide, to mention the high temperature, but even less mature technologies, for example, the AEM electrolyzers, even comparing with some challenges to reduce the costs, have less critical raw materials on them in this kind of technologies, have cheaper materials, substituting titanium with stainless steel, just to make some examples. Or even less mature, like the PCCl, the proton conductive ceramic, that could add to the electrolysis cell even added functionalities, for example, separation, purification, and compression. So I think in our program, there's a dedicated support even to give a chance to these low TRL technologies.
I have maybe a meta approach on that because I've been dealing with a lot of policies in the European Commission, really a lot, from transport, energy, international cooperation, a lot. And what I saw is when you have a political willingness, timing is changing. We can see, okay, we will get it in 10 years. If really the EU wants to do it, it will not take 10 years. It will take 3 to 5 years. So the turning point is, do we have this political willingness, which is now repower EU? Okay, we were forced by the circumstances. But 6 years ago, when I was dealing with materials, people were telling me both materials, okay, we safeguard the extraction in Africa, we whatsoever. Now it's, we reuse, we recycle, we change, we substitute. The political willingness is needed. So please motivate your deciding people. I mean, but that's important. Because we are in Brussels, we are the EU. I mean, we need the member states with us. We need the ministers with us. We need they understand that and they work on it. And believe me, if they work on it, then you accelerate drastically. And also one thing, it's not regular growing, it's just like that. So we are here, so we are not really convinced, but it will accelerate. What we need is the acceleration, not the speed.
Yeah, I would like to add something to that, because of course the ministers can accelerate things, but do not underestimate also the power of the people, because the ministers listen to the people as well.
They should,
at least here in Europe, I would say. But it's important, so the people can also make the ministers changing.
That's a joint action.
Exactly. So anyway, I have a last question here, and then I want to...
Can I add a comment?
Absolutely.
Bart? Yeah, even coming to the research as it is framed, even in the Clean Hydrogen Partnership, of course there's a support, a dedicated support to vertical technologies and to improve one technology at a time in dedicated topics, part of the calls and of the annual working programs. But we introduced in the Clean Hydrogen Partnership with a strong push from the research, even a new instrument, which is the Strategic Research Challenges. We think these are much beneficial because when you need to sort out a big challenge, like to reduce iridium or other critical raw materials in some technologies, it's hard to progress project by project in a small community of research and innovation. So these challenges have been seen as a long-term, at least 5 years projects with sufficient dedicated budget, but with the intent to aggregate the research community in sorting out and solving what is a real challenge for the sector. And this is involving critical raw materials, it is involving the hydrogen storage, it is involving maybe in the next future even something related to degradation or understanding the mechanism by which we could have better performances, for example, in electrolyzers. So, yeah, this...
Okay. I would like to take that last question here, because I think this is a very important question here from the audience, is that, well, I will just read it here, but given that off-taking is the most pressing issue to boost the supply side, that's what we heard, we really need to boost the supply side, how can we improve collaboration with hydrogen end use within the European partnerships? And I will come to you, but I would like to hear, Mirela, for example, do you have ideas how we can improve? I know that the Commission is in lead in that, but Mirela, do you have idea? Because I know it's close to your heart, these synergies. So how can we improve the cooperation with other European partnerships? Well,
yeah, there are many ways to do it, and I think we are doing it already to some extent.
yes.
I'm not saying we haven't done anything, and I think with some we are even progressing, and we heard Wednesday from our colleagues in aviation. I think we are progressing with some of them. But I think we should go back to our drawing board to our roadmaps that we all agreed together 2 years ago. And eventually, I don't know, see exactly, because it's very dynamic, the sector. And I think what we agreed maybe 2 years ago is not actual anymore.
True.
I am afraid of that. And maybe we should go back and say, hey, what do we need to do? And establish priorities every year for both of us, if I can say that. And I insist here, we should talk. We should continue talking on a bilateral basis. I know that the structures we have are talking in a group way. I believe we could obtain better results if we continue talking bilaterally. Of course, at one point we have to put the pieces together. But I think on a daily basis we should go back to each of them and continue these discussions.
Yeah.
That would be my opinion.
Good. Bilateral is always very important and sometimes goes faster and reaches some results, but indeed you also need to keep the overview.
Yeah.
That's also important as well. So finding the right balance is probably the issue. Luigi, any thoughts on how we can still cooperate maybe better with the other partnerships to really stimulate the offtake? I mean, there are a lot of partnerships in Europe, so maybe do you have any suggestions as well, or do you think everything is fine? Or do you think everything is fine?
No, for sure there is a lot to improve, even because we are at the beginning of this process to work together in a wide challenge that is spreading alongside Europe and even over, let's say. I think there's an alignment by the way, so Hydrogen Europe in particular, industry, from industry, they are discussing quite a lot, as well as the program office with the other partnership, particularly with the aviation, with the maritime, with the steel. I'm not sure this will be enough to accelerate the deployment to the market, because probably after the agreement with other partnership, we need to move coherently all together to see where is the market, who can pay to buy hydrogen. And maybe we would need probably further actions at this time to find the off-takers with an overall technology perspective, with even hybridization of hydrogen with other solutions through the collaboration with other partnership, and to strengthen the value of what we are proposing. But then we need to find the off-takers at a certain point to buy hydrogen.
Would you agree with that, Hélène, that maybe we need a bit more bilaterals as well, and at the same time probably only enhancing the strength with the partnerships or the cooperation with it might not lead to more offtake? So would you agree to these two kind of statements?
Well, first of all,
I want to add something maybe as well.
Yeah, because first of all, one thing which always worried me was in that domain the fact that we tend to limit hydrogen to some sectors. And for me, hydrogen is an enabler. So saying it's only for hard-to-abate sector or only for rail, for me it's just
True.
Economically stupid. I'm sorry to say it, because we have a capacity to use an enabler, for God's sake, use it when it is competitive. And not say, oh, by the way, it's only for aviation, for instance. Because it leads to decisions on infrastructure which will not be optimal. And infrastructure takes 5 years to decide minimum, and they survive 30, 50 years. So we need to be very careful on that and not limit hydrogen to some specific sectors. It's an enabler. God knows that we have very few enablers in our technical world, let's say. So that's the first thing. So it's not only the cooperation between the partnerships, but also overall synergies with all the other domains. Personally, by the way, I would be happy to buy a car with hydrogen, but it's not possible in Brussels because there are only 2 refueling stations and they are far away from my home. So just an example, huh? It's just if
maybe
you
the
want
industry
to
can do something about that.
Yeah, I'm
Please note it
waiting
down.
for it. Okay, but it's just a joke, but to show that, for God's sake, use the enabling role of hydrogen. That was the first point. The second is, in some domains, we don't have partnerships. So how do we cooperate? And in that case, the cooperation could go through the Clean Energy Transition Co-Fund, which is the co-fund between EU and member states and associated countries and candidate countries. Because currently hydrogen is a little bit hidden in that, because these partnerships, which is a co-fund, it's not with industry, is covering the set plan. So if I go back, putting hydrogen more visible in the set plan will also mean attracting more cooperation on funding between the national and the EU level for that, which will complement the synergies you are establishing with other types of partnerships. A bit complex, I hope I was clear enough. So we are trying to fill in this missing link, which is here. Now, personally, I'm a bit desperate to see that, but I mean, if you quote me, I'm going to be killed. But I see that the synergy with rail and somehow inland waterways and maritime is not that tough it could be.
I agree.
But we agree.
Well, am I allowed to say it myself?
Oh yes,
Yes.
I mean the hydrogen sector is a very kind sector. We don't kill people, so no worries. No. No, thank you, Hélène. And I think the message is clear, and we will try to also work on that further. But I always say it takes two to tango, so it has to come from two sides. But I think we need to work on that, because the maritime sector is indeed a very, very challenging sector to decarbonize, and I think there's a lot of room there as well. Okay, I mean, there was another question, but I think time is up. I mean, we have 5 more minutes. I don't know, Mirela, what is your takeaway here, a bit of this discussion? Are there things that you said, look?
Yeah, I mean, my final message here, it's somehow linked not only to this week, but to, if I can say that, my reflection after 1 year of program in Clean Energy Partnership. Because in the end also that was about here in this week, and a bit us opening with our program, what have we done in a year, and a bit here, take a feedback, reflect, and then as we go further, somehow in line with what Hélène said, we need this. And in particular from maybe the wider scientific community, people who are not in contact with us on a daily basis. So this is exactly what I'm trying to distill now after this week. So my reflection is a bit is more also of a worry I have. Also looking a bit at the first call and the results of our first call. I have a bit the feeling that we are a bit, from the research side, slowing down. Slowing down, why? Because we are extremely busy, and in particular our industry is extremely busy to deploy now the current technology. It's trying to have
Scale
big
up.
projects, demonstrate them, build them, manufacturing capacity, but of the current technology. And the current technology still needs improvement. The current technology is still expensive, not at the best of its performance, etc. And I have a bit of feeling, it's just, maybe I'm wrong, and I would like to be wrong, really. But I have the feeling that we are slowing down because of this, and we are not paying maybe sufficient attention to the next generation of products, to continue to improve the technology, to keep the leadership and the competitiveness in Europe. And this is a bit my reflection. And this is somehow also linked to the valleys. Because I see a bit of too much going into the valleys concept, which are important, don't get me wrong. But in the detriment of the research. And this is a bit my reflection. You wanted my opinion, and
Of
this
course.
is my personal opinion.
No, I think you're not the only one who. It's also something that I heard also during the week, that yeah, we still need to do research. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not done. A lot of talks are about scaling up and so on.
Yeah.
And that's also one of my takeaways. And so, no, first of all, I would like to thank everybody for being here and spending is also here today, the Friday afternoon, still with us. I know it's not always easy. But what I feel that the positive things was for me that I saw that also in Central and Eastern Europe, things are happening. And really, if I see, for example, what the Baltics are doing, or also what is Bulgaria, also what's happening in Croatia, we heard so many inspiring projects. I think this is what we needed, because a lot of times it was like, only Western Europe is moving, there things are happening. Well, I can conclude after this week as well, I saw things are going to happen also in that area. There is a clear movement going on there, and this is good. This is very, very good result. Then, of course, I mean, we heard about the hydrogen valleys, the importance, and that we need to push further on the hydrogen valleys. I think everybody is aligned on that, but also keeping the research in balance. I mean, and I think it will be a difficult balance, of course, because one side will pull more on the valleys, and the other side will pull more on the research. And that's where I think that we really need to speed up with the member states on this alignment. I mean, the ERA was a fantastic thing that happened. Yeah. But now it should not stay only a paper. It really had to translate into real action in the field, in real alignment in, okay, this university will do that research center will do that, and try to put all this, these puzzles or all these jigsaws in a nice puzzle on Europe. I think this is urgently, because the sector is moving enormously fast, the hydrogen sector. And so aligning take, unfortunately, a lot of time. So we need to I think we need to speed up that alignment. And I agree the set plan is one of the very, very good ways to do it. But maybe it will take too much time and the sector is moving maybe too fast. So maybe my message is rather, let's speed up the set plan review.
No, the set plan, let me be clear. When we had the same problem on batteries, okay? We were nowhere. And in the Alliance, you have a full chapter on research and innovation with a list of technologies which are generation 1, 2, 3, 4. Research in generation 1 and 2 was to improve the manufacturing, to reduce the cost and so on. But research on generation 3, which will arrive soon in the market, but not yet, they are real research. And I would say we need that on hydrogen. We need this process on hydrogen. Yes. That I take again my gap on research and innovation, because the research of today are the markets of tomorrow. And this is very, the problem is it is clashing with the political cycle very often. And it is up to the industry also to have a long-term vision, just to prepare for the future, and to us to support it. And I agree with you that the set plan could be also a tool for that. That's why we want to put hydrogen in it, more visible. The revamp of the set plan will be delivered in March next year. And by the way, please come to be at the set plan presidency conference, which will be the 9th and 10th of November in Prague, please, because we will discuss on that. But more important, in the revamp of the set plan, indeed, we would like to accelerate. But for accelerating, again, we need the policy pressure, we need the industry. And let me just conclude that the matter is not always the money. The matter is the willingness and the impact. So we need to work on what has the biggest impact, and not to calculate our action through the amount of money. We calculate through the impact we can have. Absolutely. The word impact is for us the most important.
Impact is important. It's not always about the money. I agree. No. I agree with you, Hélène. So with that, I would like to conclude, but I would just like to say a big, big thanks to my team, honestly, because they really, worked very, very hard. Yeah, give applause. Because it was not easy to come to this point today, and I think we are all happy and tired that this week is over, but I think we should all look back very happy, because it was a very successful week. I only heard positive comments from the people. They were extremely happy. We had good discussions. Are there things to improve? Of course, there's always things to improve. Otherwise, we would not need research anymore, maybe. But no, I think it was a good week. Thank you also, Mirela, in particular, Mirela, with you. And of course, and also in particular, the communication team with Lilia, Anita, and also Adriana, and
Susanna.
and Susanna. And and if you start to call names, that's always dangerous. But but and also our knowledge management team, Dimitra and Kostis, and of course all the project officers. Thank you so much, really. It was so important. And of course also we have a whole administration unit as well, and with our assistants as well. So they all work together to realize this week. So thank you so much. And finally also thanks to the audience, because without you also we should not have any event otherwise. So thank you for being here, and I hope to see you all next year again. Thank you, and with this I want to close the European Hygiene Week of 2022. Thank you.
And thanks to Bart.
Voilà. That was a nice discussion. I loved it.
Isn't it?
Yeah. But I wanted to give you the chance to talk about the plans.
Yeah, that's nice.
Because
Yes.
for me this is
Yeah, thank you. It's important. It's the future is important.
Let's take a picture. Picture. One moment, we're gonna take a picture. Oh,
Where?
the guy, no, I don't know. There. He's going from a bit further.